Welcome to AntiSlave Question Everything.
AntiSlave Question Everything. AntiSlave Question Everything.
Welcome to AntiSlave Question Everything.
Question Everything. Question Everything. AntiSlave Question Everything. AntiSlave Question Everything.
AntiSlave Question Everything.
AntiSlave Question Everything. AntiSlave Question Everything. AntiSlave Question Everything. Welcome to AntiSlave Question Everything.
Hello and welcome to AntiSlave Question Everything. This is your host, Bo, and I am here to spread truth in a world so full of lies. If this is your first time here, welcome, and to everybody else, my normal listeners, hello again, guys. I gotta do this little plug for my social media, so it will be as follows. You can find me on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram, just at AntiSlaveQE. I'm also on YouTube and BitChute and Spotify. If you want to find me on Reddit, you can join my subreddit, and that's just at r/AntiSlaveQE. I post some pretty tight truth-seeking content on there, and it's an open forum, so it's good for interaction and discussion. If you're watching this on YouTube, I would really appreciate it if you hit that little like button and subscribe to my channel for some consistent, hard-hitting conspiracy content. If you were listening to this on Spotify, I'd appreciate it if you followed my show and left me a rating. Good reviews help push my show into the algorithm, so if you like it, what I have to say and you want to support me, that's how you can do it. If you have something that you'd like to say or talk about and you want to come on my show and do so, you can contact me at AntiSlaveQE@outlook.com and we can make something happen. I like to have shows where I talk with people and do a little bit more than just having myself talk, because the interaction is cool, if anything. So yeah, you can hit me up and we can totally try and make something happen. A big thank you to everyone who has been consistently following my channel and sharing my content with all their friends and family. It's a big help, and it means the world to me that I can create something other people enjoy as well as spread truth at the same time. I've said it once and I'll say it again. The entire point of me making this show in the first place was to help red pill people. Pretty hard to even have a conversation with me without it switching to some subject of conspiracy where I'm trying to red pill someone and be just like, wake up, bro. And it gets annoying to a lot of people, I feel like, when we're actually talking in person. So the fact that people are actually liking what I have to say on the internet is actually pretty cool. Thanks, guys. Now today I'm going to talk about a topic that I've been pondering for a long time, and that topic happens to be about Admiral Byrd and his many expeditions to the North and South Pole. Now there's a big reason why I want to talk about this very well-known admiral and his many well-documented expeditions, and that reason being that there are a multitude of things that Admiral Byrd has stated and shared in interviews and in his documentation that really doesn't correspond with the heliocentric narrative that most of us have been taught our entire lives. And another thing I want to say is, I want to get this out of the way kind of in the beginning, is I'm not necessarily a flat earther, and I don't really consider myself a flat earther. I don't really think I believe that we are on a globe, but I'm also not going to box myself in with any specific belief system, as I personally think that there may be flaws in both the flat earth theory and the globe theory. I just don't really think what they're telling us we are on is what we are on. And I think it would be extremely convenient for the government to say that we are on a globe with only 7 continents when there could be land beyond that. And we could just not be boxed into this small little 7-continent realm that they say that we're in. So yeah, I do have a big flat earth tapestry back there, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a flat earther. I do think that there's land probably beyond Antarctica, and a lot of the stuff that is documented by Admiral Byrd is really what makes me think that. And the fact that we have the Antarctic Treaty that took place after 1958, which I think might have been the year that he died, or the year before he died. But basically, a treaty was put in place during the Cold War, where pretty much everyone in the world wasn't agreeing with each other for anything at all. They all came together and collectively agreed that they weren't going to really explore Antarctica anymore, or that Antarctica wouldn't be open for the general population to be rolling around all willy-nilly in. So I just think there's lots of things that is a little fucking weird to me when it comes to Admiral Byrd. Like, for instance, the fact that a lot of his shit, a lot of his documentation, and a lot of the stuff that had to do with Admiral Byrd and his exploration and his expeditions and shit was all classified by the CIA for some time. Like, I've been doing research and going through declassified documents, but at some point in time, they didn't want the American people fucking reading that. And like, some of the classified shit was like National Geographic articles and shit. They didn't want people seeing like these giant fucking ice walls that were going around the Antarctic area. Like, it's fucking crazy. But now that we have that out of the way, let's start a conversation on the esteemed Admiral Byrd. Richard Evelyn Byrd Jr. was an American naval officer and explorer. He was a recipient of the Medal of Honor, the highest honor for valor given by the United States, and was a pioneering American aviator and polar explorer. He was an organizer of polar logistics, and he did like aircraft flights and shit. He did a lot of different types of navigating over all sorts of frozen tundras, man. Aircraft flights in which he served as a navigator and expedition leader crossed the Atlantic Ocean, a segment of the Arctic Ocean, and a segment of the Antarctic Plateau. Byrd claimed that his expeditions had been the first to reach both the North Pole and the South Pole by air. He is also known for discovering Mount Sidley, the largest dormant volcano in Antarctica. There are many stories from the famous explorer as he conquered uncharted territory that no other man has really seen. One account that we're going to go over on great detail a little bit later is the alleged secret diary logs of Admiral Byrd. Some pretty crazy shit, like Nazi UFOs. Super crazy shit. We'll tap into that a little bit later. Admiral Byrd was born on October 25th of 1888, and he died in his sleep March 11th of 1957. Many people believe that Admiral Byrd's death was indeed a strange occurrence. Admiral Byrd had ties to the Central Intelligence Agencies, as the exploration of the Antarctic was important to the American government. The American government really wanted to be ahead of the Soviet Union, so the CIA outsourced the exploration of the Arctic to Admiral Byrd. Admiral Byrd, despite his dangerous exploits and cutting-edge adventures, died peacefully in his home March 11th of 1957 at the age of 68 years old. He died in his home on Bremer Street in Boston, and was buried in Arlington County, Virginia. And that's all according to the official narrative. There isn't much evidence that supports the idea of possible foul play, but is speculated because of the fact that Byrd was featured on a live television interview speaking of land beyond the ice wall shortly before his death. Now, after graduating from the academy in 1912, Admiral Byrd joined the United States Navy and served there until the end of the First World War. He retired from active service on medical grounds in 1916 with the rank of junior grade lieutenant. Admiral Byrd married Mary Donaldson Ames in January 1915, and the couple had 4 children together. In 1924, Admiral Byrd helped command a small expedition to Greenland, and this gave him the taste for adventure and discovery that would so fervently drive forward his exploration career. Admiral Byrd set a personal goal to, in his life, fly above and over the North Pole. In 1926, both he and Floyd Bennett, a United States naval aviator, flew, according to their claims, the 15.5-hour flight from Kings Bay, Norway to the North Pole and back again. Both men were awarded U.S. Congressional Medals of Honor and heralded as national heroes. Admiral Byrd was also known for the 2 very famous expeditions, Operation Highjump and Operation Deep Freeze. Now, Operation Highjump was the one that he went on initially, where he talked about massive ice walls that were basically surrounding the entire area. 300, 400 mile long ice walls that are thousands of feet high, like crazy shit. Maybe not thousands of feet. That might be a fucking little bit of a exaggeration, but they're pretty fucking tall. What follows will be a clip from an old documentary that helps chronicle the many feats of the amazing Admiral Byrd. I want you to take note of the ice barrier or the ice wall that the narrator mentions in this, and also take note of how this clip mentions the campsite called Little America. It's relevant, as it is a camp that the explorers made on part of the ice wall, and this is where Admiral Byrd did most of his research. When he would leave out and go do expeditions and shit, when he would like map out areas, he would come back to do his research at this Little America camp, and they would later return to it. So it's important, and it is mentioned in this video. This is a pretty badass video too. It includes a lot of cool information. Pretty much just get to see how much of a badass Admiral Byrd is. It is about 8 minutes long, so if you want to go like grab a beer or a cigarette or something, it's going to be a pretty little decent watch. Enjoy it. Here it is.
The year is 1930. In New York Harbor, an escorting Armada of Honor clusters about a battered, weather-beaten bark, home from an historic exploration of the Antarctic. Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd is in command, first man to conquer the North and South Poles by air. Millions of New Yorkers turned out in a thrilling tribute to the daring explorer whose achievements had won the admiration and acclaim of the entire world. 23 years after he rode in triumph up Broadway, Admiral Byrd speaks to the students of America.
Greetings to you, my young friends. I am glad for this chance to tell you something about the top of the world and perhaps something about the bottom of the world too. The North Polar Sea is surrounded by frozen continents. The Antarctic continent is surrounded by frozen seas. The bottom of the world, is considerably colder than the top of the world. The south is as cold as people think the north is. Why did we explore? Why did we go to the top of the world? As long as there remains anything unknown on the face of this earth we live on, man is going to go after it to try to find out what it is, to attempt to conquer it, and to learn how to live in it. Little did I think, when we flew to the North Pole in 1926, this area, the contiguous islands, waters, to our flight to the pole, would become one of the most important strategic areas on the face of the earth.
Below is the actual North Pole, the top of the world. The plane returns after anxious hours to the expedition's base at Spitsbergen. In 16 hours, the flight had accomplished what Peary's heroic sled journey had taken more than a year to do. Admiral Byrd and pilot Floyd Bennett had blazed an aerial trail across the Arctic.
I myself think we have a good chance to avoid war. But if we, unfortunately, God forbid, do have a war, much of it will be fought across the top of the world, across the pole. It is very important that we get prepared to fight in the bitter cold and to utilize mechanized units there and to have bases near the pole, because it has strategic position with reference to our potential enemy. As the world continues to shrink with an ever-increasing acceleration, the northern areas will become important for human habitation. It's becoming warmer up there. I believe myself the whole world is becoming warmer. Now, why is the South Pole important? Why do we go down there? It is because the bottom of the world is an untouched reservoir of natural resources.
Southward ho! The start of one of Admiral Byrd's 6 expeditions to study the weird wonders of the amazing Antarctic. Later, Byrd charts the course as the ship, her masts outlined against a scarred ice wall, nears the end of a 14,000-mile journey. The sea is strewn with loose, broken ice, but the sturdy ship crunches steadily on to her improvised berth against the ice barrier. Ashore in Antarctica, the White Continent, soon scouts are searching for the snow-smothered site of earlier camps. Proudly, Old Glory is run up to fly again over Little America. The local inhabitants look on. Blocks of snow melted down in subsurface vats provide water for the camp. It's a tedious process. 2 gallons of snow yield barely 2 quarts of water. The friendly penguin is among the most hardy and primitive of birds. Of all the animals who roamed the once tropical Antarctic continent, he alone has survived. A little supervisor in full dress lord over a lifeless wasteland slumbering still in the ice age that gripped the northern hemisphere 30,000 years ago. This is Little America, the southernmost city in the world. By air, man has explored vast chunks of the Antarctic 6 million square miles. Admiral Byrd returns from a scouting flight with only minutes to spare. A savage blizzard is about to strike. Whirling up from the pole, as all storms here do, it brings ice-edged snow lashed by fierce winds. In their shelter below, members of the expedition study photographs taken on Byrd's flight. Above, the storm reaches full fury. A navigation class underground learns more of the world's coldest, windiest continent, where temperatures reach 90 below and winds 200 miles an hour. Preserving food in storage lockers is no problem here. Many experts envision the Antarctic as a huge deep freeze cabinet. Surplus food could conceivably be stored with assurance that it would be there hundreds of years later. Meat freezes so hard that it must be chopped with an axe. The fury of the storm is spent. The men can now reclaim the frozen world above. Except for a thick, fresh frosting of snow, there is no change. Crews soon are at work digging out. A tractor is freed from its cocoon of snow. Man and machines have conquered the Antarctic wastes. Dog sleds carrying vital information collected on the expedition and their drivers abandon Little America and return to the ships now being loaded. Those longtime friends of the Byrd expeditions, the penguins, say goodbye. The natural resources of the Antarctic must be left behind. Coal, oil, uranium, and penguins. Ahead, the long voyage home.
I think it's important for us to explore that area, important for the human race, to find out what's there. That is why when this crisis is over, we expect to go back. Perhaps some of you students who are hearing this talk may volunteer to go back with us.
I wanted to include that video in its entirety because it had a lot of really fucking badass dank information on our boy Admiral Byrd. You could really see how important this motherfucker was to people, like all that confetti cannon shit going on in New York. They were bugging out when this guy came back, dude. National hero type shit. And a lot of motherfuckers don't even know this guy ever existed. That could be a really fucking intricate type plan shit right there, man. A lot of people in my generation don't know this guy ever existed. So if you ever wanted to argue the point to anybody that there could possibly be more land on this planet than what the government is telling us, and you try to use Admiral Byrd as an explorer or anybody that has any type of fucking actual like explorer street cred in their own head, bro, they're just like, blah, I don't know who the fuck that is. I've never heard of him. That's not Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is the only fucking explorer I know of. Pretty crazy shit. As I stated earlier, Admiral Byrd did in fact have ties to the Central Intelligence Agency, as he was doing an investigation of the Arctic as he was exploring it. The American government seemed to be very concerned of the Soviet activity in Antarctica, and they wanted Admiral Byrd to confirm their presence as well as map the place out so the American government could find ways to strategically place their bases around the frozen continent. They basically wanted to know if there were any Soviet bases, and if there were any Soviet bases, exactly where they were placed on the continent. Because the Americans wanted to have the upper hand if there was ever any chance of them going to battle in Antarctica. They wanted to make sure that their bases, our bases, were placed in a place where they'd have some sort of strategic combat advantage. So like on higher ground or whatever, maybe at the end of a valley, so these motherfuckers would have to run up a valley or some shit. Basically, they just wanted to throw their bases in places where we'd have the upper hand. So here we have a few letters that outline some of the communications between Admiral Byrd and the director Alan W. Dulles of the CIA. So the first letter from Alan Dulles to Admiral Byrd states, "Dear Admiral Byrd, many thanks for your letter of 1st July. I especially appreciate your cooperation in their interview in Boston, a report of which I have read with great interest. One of the most heartening things about our work is the demonstration of such knowledgeable people as yourself in coming to our assistance when we need it. I would like to discuss with you personally some of the matters brought up in the interview when you are in Washington. I hope you can find time to sit down and chat a while. On arrival, kindly call my office and redacted phone number to arrange a time mutually agreeable. Sincerely signed, Alan W. Dulles, Director." And that was sent to Admiral Byrd July 16th of 1954. And then now here we have his response, and it says, "Dear Mr. Dulles, your representative called me in connection with the question you wanted him to ask me, and I was very happy to do all within my power to help him with facts, opinions, etc. I wanted you to know that I always stand ready to give you as much time as you need in connection with any matter with which I can be of service to you in your infinitely important task." This task he is speaking of is identifying identifying possible Soviet bases in Antarctica. I can particularly be of some help with Congress when some of our misguided politicians start talking about investigating your organization, which is above investigation. Don't take your most valuable time to answer this letter. Besides, I will be in Washington soon. With warm personal regards and good luck with your great task. Sincerely, Richard Byrd. And then down here we have some more communication between the CIA and Admiral Byrd, dated June 25th of 1954. All communication that was originally classified by the CIA. Now, Admiral Byrd's first expedition began in 1928, where he and others stayed in a base named Little America, which was located on the Ross Ice Shelf in Antarctica. Many photographers have taken lots of pictures of this, what had happened, where they were, their camp up on the ice shelf. It was pretty crazy. So many photographic explorations, geological studies, and scientific discoveries were made at this time. One of these being the discovery of the Rockefeller Mountains. In fact, Admiral Byrd named the unknown area land beyond the mountains Marie Byrd Land after his wife. So there was unknown land beyond the mountains, you know, that they hadn't gotten to. That was very clear. Now, there was a series of these bases called the Little Americas that was located on the Ross Ice Shelf, which is south of the Bay of Whales. And these bases were located there all between the entire length of this whole gangle of expeditions. You know, they were operating from one of the Little Americas throughout the length of Operation Deep Freeze and throughout the length of Operation Highjump. And they would too later return to specific spots that they were there before. So all these Little Americas were on the Ross Ice Shelf. And like I said, there was 5 in total. And the first base was established in January 1929 by Richard Byrd, and it was abandoned in 1930. Little America 2 was established in 1934. Little America 3 was established for the season in 1940 to 1941. Little America 4 was between 1946 and 1947. And Little America 5 was established on January 3rd of 1956. So those are all the little camps that they made on the Ross Ice Shelf. And like I stated earlier in the video, they are important. Now, I keep saying that the consistent mention of Little America is important, and this is the reason why. So this link is actually a dead link, and I had to plug it into the Wayback Machine to be able to see what the article said. But this is from the Davis County Historical Society, and it is an article in regards to Admiral Richard H. Cruzen, who accompanied Admiral Byrd on for expeditions like Operation Highjump. And he was one of the dudes that got out to Little America. Anyways, this article is now scrubbed off the internet, and it's kind of hard to find unless you are able to find this link and plug it into the Wayback Machine. And after hours of tedious internet research and archive digging, I was able to find this. So the last paragraph on this article states that Cruzen navigated through an ice pack of several hundred miles before reaching Little America. Icebergs and unpredictable weather were formidable foes during the course of this expedition. Among the discoveries made during the 1946-47 expedition was the sighting of 2 oases. One, a region of ice-free lakes and land. More than 300,000 square miles of unpaved territory were charted on an aerial mapping operations. Their observations proved that radical changes would have to be made on existing maps of Antarctica. And I'm not really entirely too sure when this article was released, but it was definitely talking about the land beyond the ice wall and described it as snow-free oases. Like, holy shit, dude. Wow. And now for the next thing that I want to show you guys, it's going to be the actual TV interview that Admiral Byrd was featured on, where he goes into detail talking about the importance of the natural resources in Antarctica, as well as the fact that there is land beyond the ice wall, uncharted land that no man has been. And he states that in this TV interview. And then not too shortly after this interview, Admiral Byrd dies in his sleep at the age of 68. And surprisingly enough, his son actually had another weird, untimely death as well. But we'll get into that a little bit later after this video. Again, this video is a little bit of a long one. I think it probably ranges from 10 to 13 minutes. So if you want to get another cigarette, beer, joint, whatever you're doing, I'd go fucking do that now, because this is gonna be a little sit through of some old-timey shit, bro. But if you're like me and you're into old-timey shit, it's not gonna be too bad. You're gonna probably like it. So enjoy it, yo.
Good evening, this is Frank Knight. May I introduce our co-editors for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope? Larry Lasser, CBS News correspondent, and Kenneth Crawford, National Affairs Editor of Newsweek magazine. Our very distinguished guest for this evening is Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
The North Pole used to be a no-man's land, but these are the days when, by buying a ticket on a commercial airliner, you can fly across the North Pole and drink a cocktail at the same time. You know, only 60 or more years ago, about 35 years ago, our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Well, Admiral, do you hope to see that?
I do.
Well, Admiral,
Yeah.
would you say that since you've been to both the extremities of Earth, are these expeditions to such far-off places, are they getting easier because of modern techniques, or is danger still close at hand?
Well, it's a little risky, but nothing like it used to be with the old slow planes and the small cruising radius where we had to put down bases. We replaced the dog teams, and of course that was a big improvement. But now the planes go much faster and they are safer, and they have a much bigger cruising radius. You haven't got the danger of a terribly heavy load.
Admiral, an expedition to which I believe you're the advisor is now en route. What is that expedition doing?
Well, that's the icebreaker ASQE, and it's a reconnaissance expedition. It's going down to the South Pole area to make certain observations and to look for some bases. They will be back in April, and they will report back, and upon the information we get from that undertaking, we will base the bigger expedition that's to follow.
Is that very definitely planned, or is that...
That is being planned right now. So I'm willing to say to you that there will be a number of expeditions that will follow, I think, year after year, at the bottom of the world, because the government has really become interested.
Well, Admiral Byrd, I can understand, I think everybody can, the interest in the North Pole because it's so near our greatest challenger, Soviet Russia, but why this interest in the bottom of the world? Nobody living down there, is there?
No, it's pretty cold. There's only one permanent resident, that's the emperor penguin. The little ones live further north. I tell you one reason they're interested. It's by far the most valuable, important place left in the world for science. That's why the scientific groups all over the nation are really interested. But more important than that, it has to do with the future of the nation, those to come after us, or even during your lifetime. Because it happens to be an untouched reservoir of natural resources. And, you know, as the world shrinks with an ever-increasing acceleration, far-flung places, once useless like we thought the North Pole was, and no man's land, become very useful. The bottom of the world will be important, not only to us, but to our allies.
I was going to ask you, does it have military importance?
It has some, and as the world shrinks, it will continue to shrink with an ever-increasing acceleration, thus bringing these places closer. And in the future, I can see a time when it will be very, very important strategically.
Well, has development of air power increased the strategic importance of places like the
very much
Palma
so.
Peninsula, we'll say?
Very much so. Even now, if anything happened and we lost the Panama Canal, we would have to control the islands just north of Antarctica, which are part of Antarctica, and between there and Cape Horn.
I've heard it said that there are 7 continents in the world, and one of them has never been seen by a woman, and that's Antarctica. Is that actually true?
Well, if the Palma Peninsula is an island, as far as I know, that's true. No woman's ever stepped foot upon the Antarctic continent, and it's the most peaceful place in the world.
Well, I'm sure that won't last very long. I understand now that you're working with the Arnold Bread Company in charge of frozen foods. Now, is there any future for frozen foods down these frozen extremities?
Well, I think the human race can be helped by that. This was thought out by Dean Arnold, who's, in my opinion, the great humanitarian. He learned that we went down there after 4 or 5 years and finished a meal that we had left there on the table when we had evacuated Little America. Everything was perfect, including the bread. So he got the idea of this frozen bread, and already he sent some to Europe, and it worked very well over there for some of the starving people. So you can store it down in the Antarctic and against the lean years, and you wouldn't have any people in the world really starving if you did that.
Yes, in the event of an atomic war.
You stay there forever.
Admiral, you speak of the resources of Antarctica. What are they? What are the natural resources there?
Well, we've found enough of coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while.
Well,
that's the coal. Now, there's evidence of many other minerals. We are pretty sure there's oil. Now, that coal shows the bottom of the world. Now, by far the coldest spot in the world. Where that coal is gets 100 below zero in the winter.
well,
It was once tropical. So we think there's oil there, and there's evidence, probably uranium there.
is it any secret? Is there uranium there? That would be the only thing that would be practical to actually go after, I suppose. Everything else would be economically unfeasible, wouldn't it?
Well, as we recklessly expend our resources, the time will come when we'll have to go after that stuff down there.
Well,
You know, I avoided what you said about uranium. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to have the world fight over the Antarctic.
Admiral, is there a competition among other nations to try to get information about Antarctica and possibly to secure some of these resources?
Well, yes. There are now 7 nations very much interested. Russia is interested tremendously. That I'm sure of. Australia has an expedition down there. The Argentine, the Chile, New Zealand, Britain, and so on. Now, you can understand those people down there being interested because they live down there. The New Zealanders, the Argentinians, the Chileans, and the Australians. And so we don't do much about claiming anything.
Admiral, you make
Do we
it sound a little crowded. Are there that many expeditions now there or en route there?
Well, you know, as I said, it's the most peaceful place in the world, but I don't think it will be for long because of this intense interest on the part of other nations and this nation.
Well, Admiral Byrd, are private expeditions a thing of the past? Is expedition and exploration, making expedition and exploration now purely a government function because of the tremendous
No, I
calls from
don't think
organizations?
so. I think down south, it may be more or less a thing of the past, but not other expeditions that go. There's a lot of them go north now.
This latest expedition now on the way is a government expedition, I take it.
Yes, that's the government.
Admiral Byrd, may I ask you, is there a great difference between the top of the world and the bottom of the world?
There is. Now, the North Pole is the center of an ocean 10,000 feet deep. The South Pole, the center of a plateau, 10,000 feet high. The North Polar Sea is surrounded by continents slightly frozen. The Antarctic continent is surrounded by a belt of ice, frozen seas of at least 1,200 miles thick. Now, the south is a plateau. It gets, in some places, 14,000 feet up. I've been over areas about 13,000, and it's a little bit chilly up there. So there's that big difference between the top and bottom of the world. The north really isn't very cold up there on the Arctic Ocean.
Not compared to the south. Admiral Byrd, we often hear it said that our young Americans now aren't as hardy as their forefathers. Do you think that Americans do measure up to the standards, the physical standards and morale standards of the past?
I do. I don't believe that. I think they're just as hardy.
Well, what would you say was the most valuable factor on expedition? Is it morale or physical courage, or is it sheer equipment?
Well, I've always thought that loyalty was by far the most important trait. The British told me that when I first went down in 28, that I couldn't possibly get through the winter night without a mutiny if I took more than 20 men. But to serve science, I had to take 42 men. Then I took 56 the next time, and so on. So, and I did find that loyalty was the most important thing during the winter night when it's very hard on your nerves. I think that's the trait.
Well, that's a very valuable characteristic at any time. Well, thank you very much, Admiral Byrd. It's been a great pleasure to have you here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
The opinions expressed on the Longchain Chronoscope were those of the speakers. The editorial board for this edition of the Longchain Chronoscope was Larry Lasser and Kenneth Crawford. Our distinguished guest was Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
So yeah, it's obvious why Admiral Byrd had to be fucking taken out after that interview, bro. He said way too much during this interview. And I think you can kind of tell after he says that about the uranium, where he's like, oh fuck, I've been saying way too much on this interview. I mean, he starts the fucking thing off by being like, there's land beyond the ice wall in the South Pole. And these people are like, woo, 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 woo. And then all this information about the land beyond on the walls, you know, it's getting scrubbed off the internet now. Super crazy stuff, man. Okay, and the next thing that I want to share with you guys is this article that was actually written by Admiral Byrd himself and released on the National Geographic magazine. So this entire article at one point was actually classified by the Central Intelligence Agency. And it states, all-out assault on Antarctica. Operation Deep Freeze carves out United States bases for a concerted international attack on secrets of the frozen continent by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd. And this was released in August of 1956. So this was after the Admiral got back from his whole spiel out in Antarctica with Operation Deep Freeze. Now, for some reason, all of this information was classified. And this entire article is a really good read for anybody who is interested in Operation Highjump and Operation Deep Freeze. As you can see here, we got maps of stuff showing where the Little Americas camps were, showing the Ross Ice Shelf right here. You got the dogs and stuff. This next one's pretty crazy. The actual ice wall itself. You can see how far it ranges and how massive it is in comparison to the ship that this dude is on. You got the guys over here looking over the maps, doing their research. This article has plenty and plenty of fucking information, man. So if you're really interested in finding this shit, you can. You just have to go onto the CIA Archives website and type in Admiral Byrd, and you'll find all sorts of shit. Here's the Little America bases and stuff. They're loading their food inside of there. Notice how Admiral Byrd was talking, too, on that interview about how the freezing weather in the South Pole can help freeze all of the world's food supply. He stated, if used properly, that all of the world would never go hungry, as we basically have a giant deep freezer that we could be storing food in for hundreds and hundreds of years. But anywho, I just wanted to show you guys this article because I think it's really, really interesting. As you can see, you got the ships breaking through the ice and everything. It shows the icebreakers. You got their camps and everything there. This article is a very, very deep dive into these expeditions, guys. So if y'all is interested in this shit, I'd definitely look it up. Now, not only is there a lot of focus on the expeditions that he did because of the fact that it could help prove some points in the eyes of the flat earthers or in the eyes of the hollow earthers, or basically in the eyes of anybody that questions the heliocentric model. There was some more crazy shit that was going on with this too. And it has to do with like aliens and Nazi spacecrafts. Like I stated earlier in the video, it's way far out shit. I have a video that I pulled off of TikTok that I want to show you guys. But before I show you guys that video, I want to show you guys these couple of documents that just show more communication between Admiral Byrd and the CIA. One of these documents is going to be a report on Soviet activity in Antarctica. Not only were they worried about Soviet activity in Antarctica, but they were also worried about German activity and pretty much any type of other foreign activity that wasn't American. So they had Admiral Byrd out there poking around and looking for shit for the CIA. So he was woven in with intelligence, for sure. And we all know what happens when you get woven in with intelligence. and you start talking a little bit, you get fucking popped. It's weird. Admiral Byrd died at 68 and his son died at 68 as well. And we'll get into his son's death and everything a little bit later after I show you guys these documents and that video that I pulled off of TikTok, which is actually a clip from Ancient Aliens talking about Admiral Byrd and the possibility of the aliens. So let me show you these documents really quick.
You are listening to AntiSlave. Question everything.
The first document that I would like to go over would be these two letters sent between Admiral Byrd and the CIA. This first letter is from the director of the CIA to Admiral Byrd, and it states, "Your very kind letter of June 8th arrived while I was out of town on a short trip, but I hasten to thank you for your expression of confidence and support. To know that the responsible people of the nation, such as you, are behind in these troubled times is indeed a great comfort. It is also reassuring to me to know that I can always count upon your help. With warm personal regard, faithfully." That was from the director of the CIA to Admiral Byrd. And Admiral Byrd's response is as follows. "Dear Mr. Dulles, I wish still again to offer you my services. Of course, since I wrote you last, I have been doing what I can to help. We know that no one is taking seriously anything said in criticism of the CIA. To talk about security risk in your organization would be absolutely ridiculous for two reasons. First, because you are there, and secondly, it would, we know, be very bad indeed for the country, both at home and abroad, to start investigating the CIA. I just wanted you to know we are for you and your splendid brother also. I am glad that I am able to understand his statements regarding foreign policy. Your task, as everyone knows, is tremendously important. Success to you in every respect. The nation is back of you. With warm regards. Sincerely, Richard E. Byrd." And this was dated in June 8th of 1954. So just some interesting communication between the two men that I wanted to point out. The next document that I would like to share with you guys would be this document that states all of the Soviet activity that was going on during the time in Antarctica. Obviously, the American government had a lot of interest in what Soviet Russia was doing in Antarctica. And as Admiral Byrd had stated in his interviews, there was a lot of natural resources that different nations likely were interested in. And not only that, but I believe probably entrances to other lands that, we as the general population would have no idea really exist unless, they were dedicating a lot of time to researching the possibility of said lands. So yeah, basically this document is basically an abundance of information that has to do with what the Soviet Union was doing in Antarctica and where they were doing it. I believe it's important because it just shows how concerned our government was. Anywho, now let's get into some more deep dive far out shit that has to do with Admiral Byrd. Operation Highjump and Operation Deep Freeze have become very important part of the lore surrounding aliens in Antarctica. And that's the next part that I really want to get into. There were reports of saucers with swastikas on them flying alongside Admiral Byrd's fucking plane and shit. And there were posts all over the internet some time ago that were talking about and documenting these types of occurrences. However, nowadays, that type of shit is really hard to track down. Somebody on Reddit actually said that they remember watching a video of Admiral Byrd speaking on the saucer-like objects that he's seen next to his plane. But they said that since that video has been taken off the internet. They also said that they even had that video from a Russian website that was translated, but you could still get the general idea. But that video has also since been taken off of the internet. So like I stated earlier, Admiral Byrd himself said some really weird shit on live television, and shortly after he died in his sleep at the age of 68. And I mentioned earlier that his son also died in some strange circumstances as well. So we're going to touch base on that really quick. Richard Evelyn Byrd III, a lieutenant commander in the Naval Reserve, also accompanied his father during Operation Highjump and most likely saw some crazy alien shit as well. This dude also died mysteriously at the age of 68. In 1988, Richard Byrd was on his way from Boston to Washington, D.C. to give a big speech about his father at a National Geographic Society event honoring Admiral Byrd. He actually never made it to DC, and he was found dead in an abandoned warehouse in Baltimore 3 weeks later, wearing different clothing and one shoe. He had died from malnutrition and dehydration. That's pretty crazy that he was wearing different clothing and one shoe. One shoe. That's one thing to think about. If you know anything about elite symbolism, when it has to do with people getting sacrificed, people disappearing, false flags, you'll notice that shoes and bikes and the color red is in a lot of symbolic type shit. So it kind of creeped me out when I read this about his son being dead and being found with different clothes on and wearing one shoe, The coroners declared that the son had died to Alzheimer's, but even his children were confused by the cause of death as they didn't see any signs of it besides him missing appointments here and there. I personally believe he was being monitored and was preparing to say something exposing the truth of Operation Highjump at the event honoring his father, and there was a botched attempt to silence him before he got to the event in DC. And here's an article in regards to Admiral Byrd's son being found dead in the warehouse. He was mistaken for a vagrant or just like some fucking homeless guy, but he was really an important person. Like, he came along with Operation Highjump. This is crazy shit to me. Also dead at 68 under mysterious circumstances. What the fuck? The next thing that I want to show you guys is this clip that I found on the internet from Ancient Aliens in regards to Admiral Byrd and his whole conquest and all the shit that he did. So this clip really touches bases on the idea that there were aliens out there, and this is really the only thing that I could find that had to do with aliens and Admiral Byrd that was like something that was televised. Like I stated earlier, there were actually other interviews with Admiral Byrd, but you just can't find them on the internet now. So things like episodes of Ancient Aliens talking about said occurrences is really just the byproduct of the information that we used to have. So that's why I want to share it, because it is important. So that will be what follows. Enjoy it.
Expedition called Operation Highjump departs for the South Pole. It is led by esteemed naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd.
Admiral Richard Byrd was a very important admiral in the United States Navy. He graduated the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis. He fought in World War I, and after the war, he became an explorer.
In 1926, Byrd made worldwide headlines when he and Navy Chief Aviation Pilot Floyd Bennett became the first people to ever fly over the North Pole. For their efforts, both men received the Congressional Medal of Honor. Later, when Byrd, at the age of 41, made the first solo flight over the South Pole, he became the youngest person ever promoted to the rank of Admiral in the history of the United States Navy. In 1946, Byrd oversaw Operation Highjump, the largest Antarctic expedition to date. The massive military convoy included 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and 4,700 troops.
The U.S. Navy sent down a flotilla of ships under command of Admiral Byrd, and they came back after about 9 months in Antarctica. Apparently, they actually fought a battle in Antarctica, probably between remnants of the Third Reich and perhaps extraterrestrials as well. There were stories of craft coming up out of the water and attacking them. Flying saucers dealt a very heavy defeat to Byrd's Operation Highjump. He gave a report in March of 1947 that said a new enemy had been discovered that could fly from pole to pole in an instant.
Now, a lot of people believe that there was definitely some extraterrestrial interference during the length of these expeditions. I stopped the clip where I stopped it because I wanted to talk about the statement that they just mentioned on Ancient Aliens. On his retreat from Antarctica during Operation Highjump, the first thing he did was give an interview from Santiago, Chile, where he said this. Admiral Richard E. Byrd warned today that the United States should adopt measures of protection against the possibility of an invasion of the country by hostile planes coming from the polar regions. The Admiral explained that he was not trying to scare anyone, but the cruel reality is that in case of a new war, the United States could be attacked by planes flying over one or both poles. This statement was made as part of a recapitulation of his own polar experience in an exclusive interview with the International News Service. Talking about the recently completed expedition, Byrd said that the most important result of his observations and discoveries is the potential effect that they have in relation to the security of the United States. The fantastic speed with which the world is shrinking, recalled the Admiral, is one of the most important lessons learned during his recent Antarctic exploration. I have to warn my compatriots that the time has ended when we were able to take refuge in our isolation and rely on the certainty that the distances, the oceans, and the poles were a guarantee of safety. And now this Ancient Aliens clip is about to go in and talk about how in 2018, they basically saw some sort of chemtrail that went from one pole to the other. So yeah, crazy shit. That will be what follows.
In 2018, more than 70 years after Byrd's astounding claim, a satellite image captured what appeared to be a condensed water trail from an aircraft, or contrail, that could only have been produced by something traveling at incredibly high speeds. It extended the entire length of the Earth, longitudinally from the North Pole to the South Pole, which is 12,000 miles. The maximum length of time that a contrail can maintain its shape is 30 minutes, but most dissipate in less than 15. Only a craft capable of traveling faster than 50,000 miles per hour, or 10 times the speed of the fastest aircraft in existence today, could leave a contrail that would stretch the entire length of the Earth without breaking up.
I think it was pretty wild that information even got onto television through Ancient Aliens. Pretty wild to me. The next thing I want to share is an article from around 2014 that has to do with Admiral Byrd and the Hollow Earth theory. And this kind of ties in to the logs, the secret diary of Admiral Byrd that we're going to discuss a little later on. So here's some excerpts from that article. Quite interesting. After a long, hard, cold losing battle with the icing conditions, and in most cases the ice itself, Byrd and his team found a place in Antarctica where the waters ran warm, an oasis as reported previously. Although Byrd was chosen to lead the mission for a rather specific reason, he was also quite qualified and favorite amongst the American public, the perfect candidate of choice by U.S. Navy and top brass. Another man by the name of Rear Admiral Richard Cruzen was selected to head up the task force. So they had a lot of qualified guys, and they were expending a lot of resources. A lot of people thought that was kind of weird. This was an unusual move for the American military at the time, as people, nations, and even world economies were still volatile from the previous war. Why would the U.S. military be seeking to expend so many resources at risk of great loss to explore such a harsh region of the globe as Antarctica? What was the rush, and what did they know? A lot of the details regarding Operation Highjump have been carefully tucked away over the years. Interestingly enough, many of the actual mission details were shrouded by secrecy, hidden from the American public. In fact, an excerpt from a report entitled The Antarctica Enigma reads, "Little other information was released to the media about the mission, although most journalists were suspicious of its true purpose given the huge amount of military hardware involved." The U.S. Navy also strongly emphasized that Operation Highjump was going to be a Navy show. Admiral Ramsey's preliminary orders of August 26, 1946 stated the Chief of Naval Operations will only deal with other governmental agencies, and that no diplomatic negotiations are required. No foreign observers will be accepted. Admiral Byrd was a strategic choice, as he was a national hero to the Americans. He had pioneered the technology that would be a foundation for modern polar exploration and investigation. He had been reportedly decorated and had undertaken many expeditions to Antarctica, and was also the first man to fly over both poles. However, the task force itself remained strictly under the military command of Rear Admiral Richard Cruzen. Richard Cruzen was one of the few men to have located one of the several oases, now secret areas of the Antarctic. Touching on the real reason the expedition team was sent there, however, only people in the know with special clearance would truly know the intended purpose of the expedition. An excerpt from the Davis County Historical Society reads, according to a Navy report, 1,000 miles of new coastline was discovered on exploratory trips by the Bear and Byrd seaplane, commended by Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox for his superior seamanship ability, courage, determination, efficiency, and good judgment in dangerous emergencies. Cruzen was one of the 16 members of the 1939-41 expedition who received the Antarctic Expedition Medal, presented in November 1946. Now, those were just some important little nuggets of knowledge that I wanted to include within this video. I know this video is going to be super fucking long, and there's going to be a lot of information jammed inside of it, but really this is just a big topic, so it's going to be drawn out. Next, we're going to get on to the part that I've been anticipating probably the most this entire time, and that's the secret journal entries of Admiral Byrd. Now, this shit's pretty far out here, so when you listen to it, just try to listen to it with an open mind. Some people believe that this journal was released by Admiral Byrd's son, and that's the reason why Admiral Byrd's son got fucking... Other people believe that Admiral Byrd's son was gonna fucking release more information in DC. So the whole situation is just a big shit show. Untimely deaths, whatever. Anywho, let's get on to these secret logs. Admiral Byrd Secret Diary Logs. The Exploration Flight over the North Pole. I must write this diary in secrecy and obscurity. It concerns my Arctic flight of the 19th day of February in the year of 1947. There comes a time when the rationality of man must fade into insignificance, and one must accept the inevitability of truth. I am not at liberty to disclose the following documentation at this writing. Perhaps it shall never see the light of public scrutiny, but I must do my duty and record here for all to read one day. In a world of greed and exploitation of certain of mankind can no longer suppress that of which is the truth. 0600 hours. All preparations are complete for our flight northward, and we are airborne with full fuel tanks at 6:10 hours. 0620 hours. Fuel mixture on starboard engine seems too rich. Adjustment made, and Pratt Whitneys are running smoothly. 0730 hours. Radio check with base camp. All is well, and radio reception is normal. 0740 hours. Note slight oil leak in starboard engine. Oil pressure indicator seems normal, however. 0800 hours. Slight turbulence noted from easterly direction of the altitude of 2,321 feet. Correction to 1,700 feet. No further turbulence, but tailwind increases. A slight adjustment in throttle controls. Aircraft performing very well now. 0815 hours. Radio check with base camp. Situation normal. 0830 hours. Turbulence encountered again. Increase altitude to 2,900 feet. Smooth flight conditions again. 0910 hours. Vast ice and snow below. Note coloration of yellowish nature and disperse in linear pattern. Altering course for a better examination of this color pattern below. Note reddish or purple color also. Circle this area 2 full turns and return to the assigned compass heading. Position check made again to base camp and relay information concerning colorations in the ice and snow below. 0910 hours. Both magnetic and gyro compasses beginning to gyrate and wobble. We are unable to hold our heading by instrumentation, yet all seems well. The controls are seemingly slow to respond and have sluggish quality, but there is no indication of icing. 0915 hours. In the distance is what appears to be mountains. 0949 hours. 29 minutes elapsed. Flight time from the first sighting of the mountains. It is no illusion. They are mountains and consisting of small range that I have never seen before. 0955 hours. Altitude changed to 2,950 feet. Encountering strong turbulence again. 1,000 hours. We are crossing over the small mountain range and still proceeding northward as best as can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running through the center portion. There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on the mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning. The gyroscope is oscillating back and forth. 1,005 hours. I alter altitude to 1,400 feet and execute a sharp left turn to better examine the valley below. It is green with either moss or a type of tight-knit grass. The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and we spot what seems to be a large animal of some kind below us. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible. Yet, there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp. 10:30 hours. Encountering more rolling green hills now. The external temperature indicator reads 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Continuing on our heading now. Navigation instruments seem normal now. I am puzzled over their actions. Attempt to contact base camp. Radio is not functioning. 11:30 hours. Countryside below is more level and normal, if I may use that word. Ahead we spot what seems to be a city. This is impossible. Aircraft seems light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. My God. Off our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are closing rapidly alongside. They are disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They are close enough now to see the markings on them. It is a type of swastika. This is fantastic. Where are we? What has happened? I tug at the controls again. They will not respond. We are caught in an invisible vice grip of some type. 11:35 hours. Our radio crackles and a voice comes through in English with what perhaps is a slight Nordic or Germanic accent. The message is, "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly several minutes. Relax, Admiral, you are in good hands." I note the engines of our plane have now stopped. The aircraft is under some strange control and is now turning itself. The controls are useless. 11:40 hours. Another radio message received. We begin the landing process now, and in moments, the plane shudders slightly and begins the descent, as though caught in some great unseen elevator. The downward motion is negligible, and we touch down with only a slight jolt. 11:45 hours. I am making a hasty last entry in this flight log. Several men are approaching on foot toward our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. In the distance is a large shimmering city pulsating with rainbow hues of color. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no signs of weapons on those approaching. I hear now a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door. I comply and log this entry. From this point, I write all the following events here from memory. It defies the imagination and would seem all but madness if it had not happened. The radio man and I am taken from the aircraft and we are received in a most cordial manner. We were then boarded on a small platform-like conveyance with no wheels. It moves us towards the glowing city with great swiftness. As we approach, the city seems to be made of crystal material. Soon we arrive at the large building that is a type I have never seen before. It appears to be right out of the design board of Frank Lloyd Wright, or perhaps more correctly, out of a Buck Rogers setting. We are given some types of warm beverage which tasted like nothing I have ever savored before. It is delicious. After about 10 minutes, two of our wondrous appearing hosts come to our quarters and announce that I am to accompany them. I have no choice but to comply. I leave my radio man behind, and we walk a short distance and enter into what seems to be an elevator. We descend downward for some moments, the machine stops, and the door lifts silently upward. We then proceed down a long hallway that is lit by rose-colored lights that seem to be emanating from the very walls themselves. One of the beings motions for us to stop before a great door. Over the door is an inscription that I cannot read. The great door slides noiselessly open, and I am beckoned to enter. One of my hosts speaks. "Have no fear, Admiral. You are to have an audience with the Master." I step inside and my eyes adjust to the beautiful coloration that seems to be filling the room completely. Then I begin to see my surroundings. What greeted my eyes is the most beautiful sight of my entire existence. It is in fact too beautiful and wondrous to describe. It is exquisite and delicate. I do not think there exists a human term that can describe it in any detail with justice. My thoughts are interrupted in a cordial manner by a warm, rich voice of melodious quality. "I bid you welcome to our domain, Admiral." I see a man with delicate features, and with the etching of years upon his face. He is seated at a long table. He motions me to sit down in one of the chairs. After I am seated, he places his fingertips together and smiles. He speaks softly again, and conveys the following. "We have let you enter here because you are of noble character and well known on the surface world, Admiral." "Surface world," I half grasp under my breath. "Yes," the Master replies with a smile. "You are in the domain of the Ariani, the inner world of the Earth. We shall not long delay your mission, and you will be safely escorted back to the surface and for a distance beyond. But now, Admiral, I shall tell you why you have been summoned here. Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was at that alarming time we sent our flying machines, the Flugelrads, to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. That is, of course, past history now, my dear Admiral, but I must continue on, you see. We have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Now you have been chosen to be the witness here that our world does exist, you see, and our culture and science are many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral." I interrupted. "But what does this have to do with me, sir?" The Master's eyes seemed to penetrate deeply into my mind, and after studying me for a few moments, he replied, "Your race has now reached the point of no return, for there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish their power as they know it." I nodded, and the Master continued, "In 1945 and afterward, we tried to contact your race, but our efforts were met with hostility. Our Flugelrads had been fired upon, yes, even pursued with malice and animosity by your fighter planes. So now I say to you, my son, there is a great storm gathering in your world, a black fury that will not spend itself for many years. There will be no answer in your arms. There will be no safety in your science. It may rage until every flower of your culture is trampled, and all human beings are leveled in vast chaos. Your recent war was only a prelude of what is yet to come for your race. We here see it more clearly with each hour. Do you say I am mistaken?" "No," I answer. "It happened once before. The Dark Ages came and they lasted for more than 500 years. "Yes, my son," replied the Master. "The Dark Ages that will come now for your race will cover the earth like a pall, but I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that I cannot say. We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures. And they will be here, my son, safe in our keeping. When that time arrives, we shall come forward again to help receive your culture and your race. Perhaps by then you will have learned the futility of war and its strife, and after that time certain of your culture and science will be returned for your race to begin anew. You, my son, are to return to the surface world with this message. With these closing words, our meeting seemed at an end. I stood for a moment as in a dream, but yet I knew this was the reality, and for some strange reason I bowed slightly, either out of respect or humility. I do not know which. Suddenly, I was again aware that the two beautiful hosts who had brought me here were again at my side. "This way, Admiral," motioned one. I turned once more before leaving and looked back towards the master. A gentle smile was etched on his delicate and ancient face. "Farewell, my son," he spoke, and he gestured with a lovely slender hand. A motion of peace, and our meeting was truly ended. Quickly we walked back through the great door of the master's chamber and once again entered the elevator. The door slid silently downward, and we were at once going upward. One of my hosts spoke again. "We must now make haste, Admiral, as the master desires to delay you no longer on your scheduled timetable, and you must return with his message to your race." I said nothing. All of this was almost beyond belief, and once again my thoughts were interrupted as we stopped. I entered the room and was again with my radio man. He had an anxious expression on his face. As I approached, I said, "It's all right, Howie, it's all right." The two beings motioned us towards the awaiting conveyance. We boarded and soon arrived back at the aircraft. The engines were idling, and we boarded immediately. The whole atmosphere seemed charged now with a certain air of urgency. After the cargo door was closed, the aircraft was immediately lifted by that unseen force until we reached an altitude of 2,700 feet. Two of the aircraft were alongside for some distance, guiding us on our return way. I must state here, the airspeed indicator registered no reading, yet we were moving along at a very rapid rate. 02:15 hours. A radio message comes through. "We are leaving you now, Admiral. Your controls are free." We watched for a moment as the Flugelrads disappeared into the pale blue sky. The aircraft suddenly felt as though caught in a sharp downdraft for a moment. We quickly recovered her control. We do not speak for some time. Each man has his thoughts. Entry and flight log continues. 2:20 hours. We are again over vast areas of ice and snow and approximately 27 minutes from base camp. We radio them, they respond. We report all conditions normal. Base camp expresses relief at our reestablishment in contact. 300 hours. We land smoothly at base camp. I have a mission. End log entries. March 11th, 1947. I have just attended a staff meeting at the Pentagon. I have stated fully my discovery and the message from the master. All is duly recorded. The President has been advised. I am now detained for several hours. 6 hours and 39 minutes to be exact. I am interviewed intently by top security forces and a medical team. It was an ordeal. I am placed under strict control via the national security provisions of this United States of America. I am ordered to remain silent in regard to all that I have learned on behalf of humanity. Incredible. I am reminded that I am a military man and must obey orders. December 30th, 1956, final entry. These last few years elapsed since 1947 have not been kind. I now make my final entry in this singular diary. In closing, I must state that I have faithfully kept this matter as secret as directed all these years. It has been completely against my values of moral right. Now I seem to sense the long night coming on, and this secret will not die with me. But as all truth shall, it will triumph, and so it shall. This can be the only hope for mankind. I have seen the truth, and it has quickened my spirit, and has set me free. I have done my duty toward the monstrous military-industrial complex. Now the long night begins to approach, but there shall be no end. Just as the long night of the Arctic ends, the brilliant sunshine of the truth shall come again, and those who are of darkness shall fall in its light. For I have seen that land beyond the pole, that center of the great unknown. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, United States Navy, 24 December 1956. So that is some wild ass information right there. Like I stated before I read out those flight logs, it is alleged that Admiral Byrd's son is the one that initially found this secret journal. And after finding that journal, it's also alleged that his son went out on a mission basically to spread the truth. And it is believed that the convention held by National Geographic that Admiral Byrd's son was supposed to speak at was supposed to be some big like whistleblowing event, and Admiral Byrd's son was going to get up there and basically just open the floodgates and spread the truth. But the powers that be could not let that happen. And obviously with Byrd's ties to intelligence, I'm sure his family is like very closely under watch. And especially since his son accompanied him to his journey to the South Pole. I'm sure his son saw plenty of crazy alien shit. And obviously some of those stories of the alien encounter had to have survived because it was accounted for and mentioned on Ancient Aliens, which again is super fucking wild to me. This has been an extremely crazy deep dive on Admiral Byrd and his expeditions and the possibility of land beyond the ice walls. And also the possibility of crazy fucking alien shit going on too. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Anti-Slave Question Everything. If you were watching this on YouTube and you liked what you had to see and what I had to say, blah, 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 I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, I'd appreciate it if you followed and left some sort of review on my show. I know this whole video is really fucking jumbled together and shit, but that's just because there's so much information on Admiral Byrd, and it's really hard to just kind of get it all together in one place. So I tried as best as I could to get it all together in one place. And as you can see, that leaves you with nearly like an hour and a half long of me just fucking flapping my jaws and talking shit. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the world is never actually what it seems. Take a look around and always remember to question everything. I'm out. Bye.